Spencer, of course, no games for a few weeks now. What are your thoughts moving forwards for the rest of the season?
Well, first and foremost, I just wish everybody to stay safe, to look after each other. And, it's very difficult times, unprecedented, we all know that. As far as the football goes, we have expected this, and I probably thought that it would be a few weeks earlier, but, we can't train at all for that would be 4.5 weeks. And that's on the basis the lockdown ends on the 2nd. I think it's extremely unlikely that we will play before Christmas. I listened to an interview from Nick Robinson, who's the chairman of another Step 3 league, the Isthmian Leagues, and it's unlikely. We're clearly going to need probably 2 clear weeks, I would say, to get back the players training and possibly even a friendly to get ready to play competitive action, or you're going to get a lot of injuries. And that's on the basis that the government releases everybody from the 2nd, which is probably in doubt. So realistically, we're unlikely to be playing this side of Christmas. I suppose there's a small possibility of Christmas games, but I think it's probably January. And then people have got to look at it very sensibly. And then, the FA put out some scenarios, and one of them was to play local games and only play your local teams home and away, split the division in half, and then the top 2 will play each other for promotion, or the top 4 and the bottom 4 will play each other for relegation, and all the results will be scrubbed from now. And I think that would be a positive way of moving forwards and doing that in January. People are talking about mooting, playing into June. I think that's very difficult. There's no right or wrong. It's a very difficult circumstances, as I said. It's a problem that we're going to look back. History is going to look back at behind the wars as a very, very dramatic year or two, sadly. So priority is everybody stays safe, and the leagues have got a very difficult position. I was listening to this podcast, and they're talking about points per game, and I've been asked to comment about somebody said to me about points per game you could get relegated. I'm sorry, absolute rubbish. It's not going to happen. You can't suddenly get points per game when you've played whatever it is, 7-8 games. We're told categorically that any decisions will be made before we kick the ball on the 19th of September. That hasn't happened. There's a precedent that last year we got over 80% of the games done and they still didn't promote or relegate. So that they certainly can't be looking at that. It's not a concern at all. You can't, the fixtures that we've been given and everything else, it's not going to happen. So we don't need to start thinking along those lines. We may start after Christmas. The season may be abandoned. Who knows? So we're not worried about that. And, we've just got to look forward and be positive. But as I said, priority, let everybody, players, staff, volunteers, supporters, friends, family, just stay safe, look after yourselves, and let's get through this and we'll move forward.
Of course, no income coming in for a while, even more difficult position for the club financially.
Well, yeah, I mean, we made the directors, myself, we all spoke in the summer. I made my position very clear, and ultimately Rob controls the purse strings, and the club has lost 80, maybe 90% of his income. We get our money from the bars and functions. That's probably 80% of it. 10% of it's sort of academy, and 10% is attendances. And ultimately, our budget has always been right at the bottom anyway, and this year it's not even a fraction of that. And that has had an impact on results. Of course it has. I don't think the performances have been that bad. We've only played, I think it's 8 league games. And of course I'm disappointed by that, frustrating, but I've always said I've been doing this 23 years. The teams with the budgets, the top budgets are at the top, and the teams with the bottom are at the bottom. And the reality is this club has had a horrific last sort of, I suppose, 20 years of financial problems, and the club doesn't have the income, so we cut our cloth accordingly, and the club needs to be there next year and 10 years and moving forward. It's a community club, so ultimately the club hasn't taken on any debt, hasn't borrowed any money to my knowledge from anybody, which is important. And a lot of clubs are still signing players as of yesterday, which you just see them and you wonder, all the money they're spending, is it going to be worth anything at all? And ultimately, we're in a good position from that perspective. But yes, we have no income, and when our income has been cut 90%, it clearly affects on the budget. We've got a number of players playing for absolutely nothing. They're not happy about it. We've got some other players that play for a few expenses, and it has shown. know that when we start again, and if the bars and the functions are allowed to reopen and we can have our cup finals and concerts at the pitch and all the wonderful things that the volunteers and staff do at Farnborough, then we know we can be competitive. I know we need 3 or 4 experienced players. People don't have to harp on about it. We know that. We'd love an expensive, domineering central midfielder and more forwards, etc. But they cost money that we don't have. So other clubs, they may not be there next year or the year after. Again, you're hearing people say that there's a lot of mismanagement and clubs paying out money. So we've got to be grateful that we're still here. It does hurt on the pitch, and I understand supporters, they just want to win football games predominantly. But the priority at the moment is safety, and the second, from a financial perspective, is that we don't bankrupt the club again. We are where we are financially, and we'll get it right financially as we move forward as well. And when things calm down, and we will get a vaccine, and the country and the world will recover, we'll be able to push forward from a solid basis rather than being saddled with a huge amount of debt. So it's not pleasant what's going on at all financially. It hurts me. We're working so hard. We want to play games. We want to constantly win football matches, and it's been incredibly difficult this year, incredibly difficult, and a lot of things people don't know, and the last 2 weeks have been quite horrific for the dressing room, for me personally. Very, very difficult. And even tonight, there's one of us, I won't say who it is, who looks like they're going to have to self-isolate, and we just wish everybody well. It's very, very difficult at the moment. So we apologise. I certainly apologise. The results haven't been good enough, but we did think the season wouldn't happen, and that's sort of where we are at the moment. It'd be a very brave person to say we can fit in half a season after Christmas. You've got to look at the weather, how many games that normally takes away. You've got to look at the fact that we've really got to finish in May. You've got to look at the fact that anyone who doesn't think there'll be further lockdowns is a very brave person. The world is telling us it's going to be a very difficult winter. So, as I said to the Borough fans, we've got to keep smiling and make sure that we're still here and everybody's safe and well, and that's my message.
And every game, bar one in our league, has been called off this midweek. Is that much of a surprise for you?
No. There's a lot of scared people out there at the moment, and we've got lockdown starting tomorrow night. We've had a number of players, a huge amount of tests going on in the last few weeks. So as you can see, we had people missing again at the weekend. Ben was missing, and Reese and others, and thankfully that they're well at the moment. And there's people that we're not going to go into others. And I apologise for even mentioning those two, but they're both well again, which is the most important thing. So it's a very difficult time, and you've got to look at the fact with every other game being off. What do you do? Ultimately, we'll get time to play other games, hopefully, and if it's not this season, it'll be next season. But ultimately, the club will lose money. It's got beer, I believe, available, etc. But safety's got to be paramount, and people feeling comfortable and locked down only a couple of hours after we've finished games. So it is difficult decisions that lots of people have had input into. But it just comes down to the most important thing. It's easy to say, sometimes looking at how fans get in safely and etc. But we've got players in the dressing room. Too many often in a dressing room, and getting out onto the pitch and the safety, and you can see the amount of players we've had missing this season due to COVID tests and symptoms. It's very, very difficult. So we've been put in a very awful position this year, and I was interested, as I said again, with that podcast where he was saying, fans aren't being careful enough once they get through the original doors. And they're not talking about Farnborough fans here, but generally, and it's very difficult. It's an impossible position for the FA and the leagues. It really is. There's no right or wrong. So we just, as I said, we're going into lockdown now. We can't train. We've got to wait and give everybody a chance then to get back on it, if that's possible. But ultimately, let's hope there's a vaccine sooner rather than later. Everybody stays safe, and we'll be around when it's all over, and we can push on from a much stronger basis.
And you mentioned sort of like a mini pre-season once we come out of lockdown. What's your message to the players for the next few weeks?
I mean, literally, today at lunchtime, after sending out texts last night, I've just can say no more than look after yourselves, look after your families. stay safe. Of course, I want them to try and stay fit. It's very difficult in lockdown. Everybody's got different circumstances. As I said, we've got a number of players at the moment with different health issues, and we just wish everybody well. Of course, we'd like them to stay fit, but when it will be 5 weeks nearly by the time we get to the second, that's a long time not to do anything. So, and we'll be the same with every club. Clubs will need to get players in a sensible schedule up to fitness, and then match fitness. That's probably a good couple of weeks. That's 4 training sessions, maybe a game in there, behind closed doors, friendly game, whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden you're on to Christmas, and then you think, is it worth doing it then? And will there be any other lockdowns? And obviously, depending on all the tiers and whether people should travel, and we've already had that issue. We've got a number of players in different tiers, and whether or not they should be travelling into Farnborough or to play games. And then there's the argument: are they paid players? So it's their work. Well, in Farnborough's case, that's not the case. Almost entirely. So there are so many points to this, and one of the things that came up about points per game is that well, if you say you played 50-60% of games, which obviously we're a very, very long way away from, will they promote sides? And it's pointed out that the conference may well say we're not going to take promoted sides on that level of games. We will want 80, 90 or 100% because of course they're playing. So I do sympathise with everybody. Very, very difficult. You can't then, obviously, if you're not promoting sides, you can't relegate sides. Is there? I'm well aware of a number of clubs, even in our division, that are looking to, again, go on sabbatical for the season. So it's not just us. There are plenty of sides. It's very, very difficult on finances. We're not the only ones that are seriously struggling for income. But we said it, and we've stuck to our guns. We're not going to bankrupt the club. We're not going to borrow loads of money from who knows where. And when things open up, what the board have done very successfully in the last few years is get the off-pitch finances really, really strong and moving in the right direction. And when that all opens up again, that's where we will go from. And you said it's a very, very difficult position for everybody. No rights or wrong, and you just keep going back to the same thing. It's even this evening I've had another incident with a COVID case, and you just think, wow, let's just stay safe.
Brilliant. Thanks for the update, Spencer, and I hope you and your family stay safe.
Fine, mate. Dom, I just want to say to everyone, and to you, Dom, in particular, please, all look after yourselves, look after your families, stay safe, and fingers crossed, and I'm sure we will. We'll all see you again very soon, and get back to playing some football. Take care.
Brilliant. Thanks, Spencer.
Cheers, Dom.